Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Some of you maybe know this, others not, that Naomi and I, plus four more, that included David Roschke, were in Germany October 28th through November 6th last year. And we traveled there with Bishop Michael Reinhardt. I considered it a Luther and J.S. Bach spiritual renewal trip. In any case, one of the days on that trip, we were in Leipzig, and this was October 31st. October 31st is
Halloween.
and Reformation Day in Germany, and it's a holiday, and everybody is kind of off. And there was an event going on at the church, of course, a worship service, and the church was packed. It was just packed. And we heard for 3 hours, we heard the boys' choir and 3 sermons, and there was an installation going on. Yeah. Well, at the end of all of this, we had front row seats that were reserved by Dr. Moore. At the end of all of this, we noticed some commotion that was going on over in the chancel area. And apparently some workmen there were waiting for the people to exit so they could do their labors. And they were digging up the chancel floor. It's happened to be around the area where J.S. Bach was buried. And we had noticed when we came in that the floor was kind of sinking there. And of course, you know, what's going on in the chancel when the floor is sinking. And they were digging it up, putting the dirt in heaps around the gravesite. Finally, they had enough out so that they exposed the gravesite, and they were elevating the casket up out of the ground. Yeah. And all of a sudden, the cover popped off and upset J.S. Bach. He was erasing manuscripts. And I said to him, Herr Bach, was machst du da? What are you doing there? He said, I am decomposing. Well, keep a smile on your face today. Okay. And my thanksgiving to Naomi here, who assisted me in the preparation of this material and actually is responsible for the printing of it today. My task for you today is written on the piece of paper that you have in front of you when you came in, and that is to provide a practical model of congregational participation in decision-making, focusing on the importance of knowing and articulating expectations and assumptions for a hiring or a calling. So let's look at the vocabulary. Expectation. An expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. It's a belief that someone will or should achieve something.
I've been taught that expectations are premeditated resentments.
Assumptions. Assumptions is a thing that is accepted as true or as certain to happen without proof. Now, both can influence decision-making and behavior, but they operate on different levels of certainty. So let me go through the program for today. You have it printed out for you here, and I have it on the board. We've already given today's tasks and the definitions. We'll talk a little bit about what we mean when I say this is a process class, what we're doing when we do prolegomena. This is what it looks like in Greek. And our goal, our ultimate goal for the 4 weeks that we are involved in this course. We're going to do some review elements. Then we'll do an activity. This is the important part. Okay? We'll debrief that activity. We'll make a transfer from hiring a building manager to a pastor, and then we'll have a learning summary. Notice at the end, speeches, table talk, questions and answers. You'll notice its position in the board. It comes at the
And
end. So please, let's not stick it up here because it's imperative that we get the activity done for today. Okay? So, this is a process class. That is, it is not an academic class. I'm not going to tell you about the ante-Nicene fathers like Clement of Alexandria or Tertullian or Origen or Cyprian, nor my favorite topic, which is how cosmologists are updating the inflationary paradigm with quantum fluctuations in space-time. It's about gravitational waves, but I love it. Okay? Instead, we're doing prolegomena, and prolegomena has to do with introductory remarks. P-R-O, introductory remarks, things that you say or do beforehand, preliminary discussions, foundational concepts, and it's derived from the word in Greek meaning things said beforehand. I like to think of it as foreplay. So then let's talk a little bit about what prolegomena or review entails. To me, it entails that the offices exist, and we've looked at this for the last 3 weeks. And that is deacon, presbyter, bishop, priest, pastor, and that they have moral standards. Secondly, that the priesthood of all believers is an operating concept. Every person has one's own priest. There is one's own priest. So then we ask, why do we need a pastor? Well, this was answered for us in presentation given by Pastor Gary. Martin Luther on the roles of pastors. Okay, and you had this, and maybe it's still kind of out there from previous weeks. And the role of a pastor, Martin Luther says, is not a special mediator between the people and God, but a servant of God who exists to guide others toward God through faith. Pastor discharges the office on behalf of all of us. Now, what does the pastor do? He preaches the word, that is, he tells us of heavenly realities, and he or she teaches, and pastor possesses a shepherd's heart, that is, for caring for the needs of the flock. And the congregation is to support the pastor, and this means certainly more than a paycheck. Now, I have to say a little bit more about preaching the word. When I was growing up, the people that we looked at were Paul Tillich, Emil Brunner, and other exegesis experts, certainly, but one was Karl Barth. So I consider myself a Barthian, and maybe some of you have some of his books in your libraries. But Karl Barth used to talk about the objectivity of the Word of God. And what he meant by that was that the Word of God, the sermon, the proclaimed Word, was as an entity in itself that came out of the mouth of the speaker, out of the mouth of the preacher, a metaphysical reality that entered into the individual all by itself through the ears and accomplished within that individual its intended purpose. And so that could be forgiveness, it could be transformation, regeneration, sanctification, justification. It renewed, it refreshed, it challenged, it energized, it directed. It accomplished its metaphysical objective. And it's another way of saying salvation is created in your hearing. We also, and this is the third point, we also looked at Pastor Brookover. We also looked at the Constitution. And what was important about the Constitution to me were the shalls. These were not options. These are imperatives. They are lists of what is to be. So our goal, our ultimate goal, is to identify and call, secure, hire a senior pastor, leader, head person. And in doing this, we are looking up and looking forward, which brings us to our process, which is our activity for today. And that is the interviewing and the hiring of a building manager. And we're going to do that by using a case study. And the case study is entitled King Towers. Now, what we're going to do is read the case study, and then I'm going to ask you to change your seating pattern. Instead of being in lines, to form groups of 4. Please, not 5, not 6, not 2, but 4. There's a reason for that, okay? And there are questions on the back after that we are going to consider in these groups. Once each group is formed, you will kind of elect or appoint one person in the group to be the secretary or the speaker. And then your group will go into formation, and you will answer the questions that are on the back of this sheet. There are 2 sets. And one says, what may have been the property committee's assumptions about Michael at the interview? And the other one says, what may the property committee have questioned at the interview and done before hiring Michael to obviate his unfortunate fix? Okay, I'll review that again with you and give you a suggestion as to what your answer would look like, so you don't wonder if you have to write paragraphs or something like that. Okay, so we all have it. King Towers. Okay, King Towers. Volunteer reader, please. 2 paragraphs.
All right, Centerville was a busy, medium-sized town in eastern Texas, boasting many popular attractions for visitors. One building at town center was a 10-year-old, well-appointed and cared for high-rise apartment building for senior citizens called King Towers. Fred was the retiring building manager of King Towers. All residents felt safe and secure under Fred's management.
The building's property committee consisted of 1 woman and 4 men, one of whom was the committee chairman and officer of local government. 2 committee members were residents of King Towers. Upon Fred's impending retirement, the property committee's chairman, Wayne, called this group together to talk about hiring a replacement for Fred. Wayne had a friend, Michael, 40 years of age, with wife and 3 young children, who was the building manager of a small local motel on the outskirts of Centerville. Wayne proposed to the property committee that Michael would be a good fit for retiring Fred's position at King Towers. The committee was relieved to have a prospect in view. Michael was invited to interview.
Michael was a clean-cut, well-speaking, energetic, and popular man about Centerville. His interview with the property committee consisted of cordial conversation, giving committee members every assurance that he was the man for retiring Fred's position. After 45 minutes, the committee hired Michael. After 1 month's employment at King Towers, the residents were profuse in their compliments on how beautiful the grass and flower beds appeared. But building issues were not being addressed. One of the 4 elevators was out of order. Burned out light bulbs were not being replaced. Plumbing issues were multiplying, and the recreation room paint project was not moving forward.
Over page. Wayne spoke to Michael about these complaints, to which Michael responded, "Mowing grass and caring for flower beds is taking all my time." Now, you know how to work with a case study? Yes, sure. Now, what we're going to do, again, is please, when I say go, if you will split and form 4 groups, not 5 or 6 people, but 4 in the group, and appoint one of your, in your group to be your leader, your speaker, and answer the questions. For example, one for what may have been the property committee members' assumptions about Michael at the interview. All you have to work with in the case study is the case itself. What is said on the page. Don't assume a thing. Okay? So one answer might be, no, you don't have to write paragraphs. Assume Michael knew what a building manager did. That is, find people to do the tasks and jobs or do them himself. Building manager does a very specific job. Okay? And then in the second set that says how may the property committee have obviated his inexperience, someone could have asked him at the interview if he understood the role of building manager or what the role of building manager entailed to himself. Okay? Do we understand what we're doing?
Yes.
Okay, go. Now Naomi will give you boards if you don't have a board to write on.
My purse is down here. Sit here.
Three is okay.
Oh, 3 is okay.
I can grab you one, but.
Naomi might come back.
Are you?
Their idea of the property. And they were now.
Okay. My first question
All in favor of working our.
Very nice.
It does sound like.
And maintenance on various levels. He he's the only one. Well, we don't know.
Well.
I think that's really good. Because he's well liked and you just assume like, you know, and you'll ask us to do that. Yeah, just because it's kind of good.
Yeah.
Bill guy. Right.
Because you ran them. People are.
Who recommends that there's some?
I mean,
I guess that's they never asked at the moment. Always the law.
Okay, so.
It doesn't say anything about how.
That's bullshit. Thank you for 21.
Addresses, so for example, if the elevator would continue to avoid doing that, or you.
Why don't you work on the second section?
I really would.
So how would you resolve? We get conflict in the church all the time. That means big conflict.
I'm thinking the yard, they cut off the water from the whole area. I mean, all buildings, about 9 buildings. Okay. The main water. And they have the water. How would they say that?
As the people going committee needs to know how it
And that might be a question. So I think the one thing that they have.
Exactly what you're saying, why, what is their job? Day in, day out.
Well, that would be in the record, that would be in the record.
Yeah.
So then, like,
asking. Yeah, but.
That's the building residence. Ask the state David. Maybe another one could be asking if we think it's gonna be resident, right? Because whether you as a property manager or get a team of people that you address things, and whether you
I agree.
what do you expect from the role at the higher or in the resident that you want to have?
Yeah, it sounds like
Now you're.
Unless you had some dealings.
Can we finish in 3 minutes? Okay, we'll take what we have in 3 minutes.
Got a question. What's the rolling door?
In this house.
Any kind of.
I probably assume you probably have
I would think of 30 hours.
We all did.
Thank you.
30 seconds.
Thanks for being subscribed. Somebody wanting to come in?
Okay, what we're gonna do now is debrief the activity. And I'm going to ask the speaker in your group if you would please read the assumptions. And we'll go from group to group. And I think we're gonna have enough time to do this, okay? So All right, please?
You want all five or just? one?
Yes, give us
Yeah,
five,
alright.
give us five. Now, you may notice that these keep appearing, okay? That's okay?
Alright, so we made assumptions about what a property manager does, and that they're the same, so their priorities and tasks. Two property
You
manager.
mean they could be different?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Property manager of a hotel and senior citizen high-rise duties were the same, so we assumed that. 3 different demographics not thought of, so who we're serving to. 4, assuming the property manager would have a personal relationship with the residents, when you don't really at a motel. 5, priorities and tasks are the same, so cleaning, landscaping outside versus caretaking.
Very good, very good, very good. I think you got it. This next group. Jane, are you?
Oh, I guess so.
Okay.
They assumed Michael knew what he was doing. Assumed his experience at the motel would transfer. Assumed that Wayne knew that Michael was competent and would have the skills needed, because Wayne's the person that recommended him. And assumed the cordial conversation would lead to competency.
Thank you. Okay.
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 So ours were that since Michael cared for the motel, he could care for the facility. He was doing a good job at the motel. Since the property committee chair made the recommendation, the committee assumed Michael was a good fit. There was no need for direct questioning with his experience, and that just because Michael was friendly, he had abilities.
Yes, good. Very good. All right, let's go here.
All
Maureen?
right, so we assumed that the property committee assumed that all property managers are the same. So if you have a property manager here, it will be able to do any property.
What was the difference between the conceptions of what the property manager did in both situations?
Well, he was a building manager in a motel,
Mhm.
and in here we had a different setting of
Okay.
care. to
Yeah.
be
Are you saying to me that as the building manager in the motel, that he considered that job, everything that he had to do, his job? That he would physically do that job?
Maybe we didn't ask him. So we did assume that it was going to be the same. And we did assume that all the needs that we have would be fixed by him, which is another assumption that we had.
Okay, well, that was there.
Yeah. Also, we had the recommendation came from Wayne, the chairman, so we assumed also that the chairman knew what he was looking for, and therefore also as a chairman being an authority, maybe we accepted it without asking.
Uh-huh.
And we also, and it also has been assumed, well, that's outside, but outside of the committee members, if you become a committee member for hiring this person, we were assuming that they knew what to look for.
Mhm. Very good. Okay, we'll see if that one is addressed later. Okay,
Okay, so the committee assumed that Michael would pick up where Fred left off, and he would just know and just get things. They also assumed that Michael would be responsive to requests of maintenance. They assumed that he could prioritize the tasks so that he would realize that maybe the lawn wasn't as important as the toilet that was overflowing.
it didn't say it was a toilet, did it?
No, it did not, but
Okay.
I'm just embellishing. Oh, I'm sorry.
Assumption.
No embellishment on the.
The light
And that the assumption was that Michael would spend the time that he needed to get the jobs done. And the assumption was that the properties had similar needs as far as maintenance is concerned.
Very good. Wow, okay. John,
How much of the ones that are different from what?
no, read the whole list. So what your group was thinking.
They assumed he would know what to do. He was liked, so they thought the residents would be pleased with him. Soon he would stay around because he was a local. He would leave here soon. He'd be an easy hire, but he's already available. And he is, soon he could quickly start. Fred left, he needed a quick start. I think the committee'd like to get things solved.
Okay, good. Very good, good. What was that one that you were talking about when I visited your group about, assuming that he could work with older people?
Well, I was gonna say instead too, a question for them. Do you have experience working with older people? Because I say, Nancy and I live in a place, older people. And we've been told that when they are hiring, servers and so forth, they always ask them, do you have grandparents? Because they know that the young people who have grandparents will sort of know how to act with their residents who are all grandparents.
Okay. Very good. Now, let's,
May I make a comment? I'm not pushing back, but I'm just gonna say that not all old people are grandparents.
That's true. But they, when they're asking, when they're, true. But when they're interviewing people, young people who work as servers, they don't say, there's a huge variety of old people. They just say, do you have experience with grandparents? That's just a little bit quick answer.
okay. Very good. You're making me feel old here, yeah. All right, let's look at this, what we do, how we correct it or obviate this, okay? We understand now what an assumption is in this kind of a situation. Let's see what the property committee could have done or asked in order to make sure that this was a good fit and that these bad things. Okay.
Ask Michael about different scenarios and how he would address them and how he would handle it. Ask the building about what they want that the incoming property manager will do for them. Ask of his day-to-day business and how it could translate to working at the new job.
I don't understand that one.
So asking Michael what he was doing at the motel.
At the motel.
And then see how it would look, how he can envision it being at the resident living, and see if he would, be adaptive and be able to take on that new responsibility. Does he work on his own at the motel, or does he have a team with him? How will that look at the senior living? And then ask about his priorities when being a property manager, and how would he prioritize his tasks?
Very good. A building manager is responsible in a building for
Depends on the job description.
security and safety.
Oh, yeah.
Security, basically, security and safety. Okay? Does the building manager do the jobs? No.
You have someone to do it.
He hires somebody to do it. In other words, he finds the right persons out there to do the jobs. He does not go and fix the commode. You want that fixed?
That wasn't in the scenario.
That was. Okay, no, very, very important, very, very important. How do you understand your tasks? Get them done.
But maybe Fred did everything.
Yeah.
We don't know. Fred may have, the previous guy may have done everything.
Right.
No, because he kept the building safe and secure.
You fixed it, or you hired.
Okay, he did it correctly, based on that definition. What do you want?
We don't-
Jobs too.
we don't know.
He probably had some skills that he was very good at, like changing light bulbs. How many items are necessary to change a light bulb? At least 3. At least 3. One to change it, two to move the ladder. Oh, it's terrible. Oh, okay.
Yes, well, we really only had 2 things. Did they have a job description of his work at the motel and his ability to, his delegating some of the things that needed to be done. Did he do that? Did he delegate?
Oh, did he do that?
Didn't do that, yes.
Okay, no, very good, good, good.
The church should have a job description. There should have been a job description, and that should have been before both of them, the interviewer and then the interviewee. There's no indication that there was any job description.
There was,
We got,
everything was left to the mind of retiring person.
we got hung up on the fact that the church did a crummy job.
The church.
Well,
No.
The
That was a
committee,
projection of the.
I'm sorry, the committee, somebody else said church.
It's a high
The committee did a crummy job. We got hung up on that.
We're moving on.
Ready?
Well, this is the job we did.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so we also agreed that there should have been a written job description to delineate priorities and convey to Michael how his work would be executed.
all right, how do you understand what we want you to do?
Exactly.
Okay,
It should
Um, Just go ahead.
it should be clear that he reports to the committee, that he's not just out there on his own.
okay,
Apparently, there was no format for the interview.
Sure.
It was just a conversation.
Mhm.
There were not multiple candidates. There was just one candidate.
That's a really good point.
And there was no, we have an extra one. There was no evaluation system through the interview for what he shared or for the committee to go back and discuss after the interview before extending the offer. And it was suggested that Fred get involved and that their committee do an exit interview with Fred to find out what his take was on the position and that Fred could be asked to stay and do some training for the new candidate.
wow.
That is.
Thank you. Okay, John, did you?
Well, I prefer that. Do you have experience working with other people? How do you feel about delegating tasks? You know about delegation. Ask you about the specific skills. And say, would you be available 24/7?
There you go.
Well, yeah.
Wait,
Now we're back to past, isn't it?
Where else have you worked and do you have, where else have you worked and do you have references?
References is really important.
Were there any checks on, no, there weren't any references, were there?
Just the one you were already.
One.
His friend.
Okay, people have stolen our thunder. I need to start with. So we started with, what has Fred been doing? So our assumption was that Fred needed to help create the job description, because you need to know what Fred's been doing all this time, so that you know what you're hoping Michael will do. We wanted references and letters of recommendation. We wanted to know what Michael's qualifications were. We were also gonna ask around to people who knew him, who didn't write recommendations, to see what the other side of the story might be. And then we wanted to quiz Michael about what he likes to do, what he doesn't like to do. Clearly, he likes to do the lawn, and what his strengths and weaknesses might be. And that, of course, could translate into, can you delegate, can you not?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what we were. I think I gave everything.
Good. And some more?
Same. Yes, not repeats, I think the committee
No,
member.
repeat, please.
So we are. So the committee members should have had a job description available. They should have put together the needs of King's Towers. So to match what if the job description and the needs that are matched. And we should have, the committee members should have checked for additional candidates as well. They should have compared what the building manager did previously in the motel and what how that would sound to them. So ask more direct questions, because all they did was having a cup of coffee and maybe some cake, I don't know.
Well, that's correct,
Right? I mean,
because they
were
had
just socializing.
cordial
Yes,
interview.
yes. So what needs to be done is we should have let Michael talk more and ask him specifics, like ever seen an elevator from the inside, or like what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses? And we would recommend to ask for a letter of recommendation to have more 360 view of this candidate. So that's what we came up with.
Thank you. Yeah, wow, fantastic. Gosh, you think, well, I wrote the story, and so it's not something that came out of a book. And it was a conflagration of several issues that came together for situations in which I was involved in hiring either for building or faculty. It all kind of tried to be very careful of what I put in and what I did not put in to see whether or not you would catch those things. You did.
Well done.
Well done. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so now, do we understand what we have done in terms of hiring the building manager? Insofar as we have expectations in our mind of what the building manager is to do. We have a candidate before us. We want to make sure that this is the right candidate, that we do not make assumptions about his or her abilities. And the best way that we know of finding out what those abilities are is by going through a resume, checking the references, asking apropos questions, not do you like coffee, but what else do you do besides cut the grass? Something else? I think we got it.
Ask the candidate if they understand or have questions about job description.
And asking questions, very important. And it's not just a matter, it's raising an issue. When you ask a question, you raise an issue in the mind of the person that you are interviewing, who probably hasn't any intention of telling you about that.
So do we want to perhaps add, as part of the interview process, to create scenarios to talk through?
We said that.
Yeah.
You said that, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, okay. Yeah.
Can we talk about availability? Are you available now?
Are you available? That's a good question. Yes, good. Are you available now?
Especially since we're poaching him from the motel.
You are.
We're poaching him.
Actually, what he did at the motel was in the life situation, what that person did in the motel was he mowed the grass and he changed light bulbs.
Yeah.
Sometimes he changed light bulbs at 12 o'clock midnight. So.
I'm thinking it might be good to ask him to repeat back what he heard as the job description to make sure he got it.
Okay. Now.
I'd like to say that I think a match, you need to look closely at the recommendations and what he actually is doing, and then what you need. Because recommendations tend to be very colorful, and they don't always tell the truth. They go on the positive side, and they may neglect some characteristics that are extremely important.
And maybe the committee should have gone over to the motel and taken a look.
So are you gonna say?
Okay,
Ah,
you know,
Well, I mean, now you're getting, yes, you could have, but I mean, there are a couple of things that need to stick with reality, I believe, right? if the job description was out, how many candidates did we get? Maybe we didn't get any, and Wayne said, well, wait a minute, I know somebody. Because we do not have candidates that run the doors down when we say we need somebody. So, and then his motel might not have been next door to King's Towers, but in Michigan.
Are you making an assumption?
And
now?
those are assumptions, yeah.
I know, but what I'm saying is like we can only ask the questions that are feasible within the capacity of our committees, right? Because we are not a high-end, King's Towers are a team of volunteers who are looking for somebody. That's my assumption here, taking from your case study. So they're not a, let's say, high corporate personnel, human resource team.
Okay,
So just wanted to have it in
okay.
what options we have.
Stephen?
Well, I was just gonna say, it seems to me it's really important to, in the exiting from Fred's position, that if it was possible to hear from Fred, would really been important to know what Fred did.
Yeah.
Get an
In a
exit interview at
situation where
least.
He seemed to have been well loved,
Mm.
so that saying you need to find out what all he's doing.
Mhm.
And the other thing is to hear from the community, whether they had the same feeling about what Fred was doing as we
Okay.
kind of are assuming. Because there may have been some problems which could have gone into a job description or whatever.
So, David, what I thought you were gonna point out is what you said with us, is that we were also going to, talk to people who we possibly knew Michael, to see what they would tell us about Michael as well. Because, the references, of course, are gonna say nice things, but who else would tell us something about Michael?
I'm gonna cut this off right now because of the time, and George has something he wants to say yet too. But I think we've understood what we're doing. You have to mentally now make a transference in your mind. We were hiring a building
And
building manager, and we could have hired a pastor. Gone through that. We specifically did the building manager and not the pastor, because we didn't want any conversation going on that would cast aspersions on any past experience that we had. So we have to rely on you now to make that transference of expectations, assumptions, question asking, and what kinds of questions you would ask. So quickly, what I hope we have done, a learning summary, is to know our own expectations and speak them to ourselves for clarity. Talk to yourself. And assume nothing about the gifts, talents, and capacities of the other, and to ask questions that are apropos to the integrity of your expectations in the process of interviewing. Have you made any speeches? George wants to make a speech.
Not a speech, but thanking you for coming, participating both in person and online. And you should have received a copy of a brief survey. Mandy is quite interested in knowing what, and those of us who facilitated also, what your expectations were and what the outcomes were for you. And you can fill it out, hand it to me now if you've already done it, or after worship, but don't work on it during David's sermon. I'll be watching you. And those of you who are online, I'll see to it that Cheryl gets you a copy. If you'd like to send it to Cheryl, Cheryl will see that I get it. Both those of you online now, live stream, and those of you who want to turn it in to Cheryl, okay? Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Wait, I got an announcement to make, please. This is a commercial for next Sunday's Adult Forum. Your RIC committee, which is in Preston King called CIC, and we're gonna explain why, is doing adult forum next week. And so we would love to see all of you there so that we can introduce the members of the committee and talk to you about what we are doing here at Christ the King in terms of RIC. So hope to see you all next
I
week.
don't know what that means.
I want to see.
Yeah, what is it?
Reconcile.
That's exactly why we're doing
Oh.
this, okay?
Okay.
Reconciling Christ is a national organization. We had a vote here at Christ the King to become a RIC congregation. It's now called Reconciling Works, the national committee. And so our committee here at Christ the King is called CIC, which is called Created for Inclusion. And we're talking about inclusion for all. So we would love to see you there so we can have a conversation about it.
Also, there are copies of the Constitution over here in this box on the table. And there'll be a quiz online. No.